share with you today a love story. And it is an amazing love story because it's mine. And it all started when I was 19 years old. I was actually singing at a wedding in Dallas. And, well, I met a guy. And literally, he swept me off my feet. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, probably that whirlwind romance type thing. You know, it wasn't that, though. It was more like a heart connection, a soul connection. Communication was amazing between us. And so he lived in another state. And so we decided when he'd come through Dallas on business, we would go to lunch or dinner or maybe shopping. We did this for several years, actually, and talked some before cell phones, so that wasn't quite as the way it is now. So we had that for a while, and then one day he was transferred to Florida, and he stopped traveling, and we just sort of lost touch. He went his way, and I went my way, and we just didn't talk or see each other again. Fast forward almost 30 years. One night, I'm just scrolling through my emails and my heart skipped a beat or two. There was an email from him after all these years, and the timing was just absolutely impeccable too, but that's a whole other story. So we reconnected. It turns out he had been back in Dallas for like 20 years, and I was working for the last 5 years in the zip code that he lived in. Never had seen each other though. So this time I was swept off my feet again, but this time, yes, it was the romantic whirlwind. And so we dated for about a year and a half, at which time I got a phone call from him. He asked me if I'd take him to the doctor. And I was glad to take him because he hadn't been feeling very well. As a matter of fact, I hadn't seen him for probably about almost 2 weeks. He made up excuse after excuse. And I took him to the doctor. Well, that took us to the ER. And that resulted in 7 days and 7 nights in the hospital. At which time they informed us that he had stage 4 terminal cancer, which had already spread to the liver, lungs, bone, and brain. They also told us if that wasn't enough to just, I don't know, what would you do, right? They told us that without treatment, 6 weeks would be good. They said 6 weeks or less without treatment. With treatment, they said 6 months would be good. A year would be great. That does not sound great to me. So they left the room. They come back the next day and they said, we need to tell you that after review of your medical insurance, it does not cover chemotherapy. So instead of putting a port in him and getting him started right away, they basically sent him home to die. And so I took him home. I went home. I prayed. I pondered. I thought up a great idea. Why don't I marry him, put him on my insurance, and get him a chance at more than 6 weeks? So that's what we did. We got married. I married the love of my life who just came back into my life, and it's an amazing love story. Got him on chemotherapy right away. And guess what? In 6 months' time, he was completely and totally healed. Yeah. So, that's how the movies end, right? What do they say at the end of the movie? Happily ever after. And I wish that was really how it ended. Because the truth of the matter is, the good news is, he lasted 2 entire years. So naysayers, boo you, doctors, boo you. 2 years I had the love of my life. It was amazing. But at the end of 2 years, he died. And that was really rough. And there I was. What do I do now? I went back to work. I had family that was there for me, and they were amazing. But then they all left. I'm working. I'm taking care of family. I'm doing all the things, right? But there was something still in here. So I went to the Lord. I'm like, Lord, he gave me strength. He gave me this true peace that passes all understanding. I truly had that peace that I could not explain. However, still, something wasn't quite right. So I had to do something. I joined a widows group. And this widows group was amazing. We met once a week on Zoom. And after a couple months of that, they had a retreat. And I went to the retreat in Southern California. The first night, they had us do these activations. And they said, we want you to, we want you to do these to help you like release him and let him go to these other 7 widows and me. It was hard because it had been almost a year. And so all these emotions were coming back up, and it was really a hard thing to do. But I got through it. And the next day, though, is what I'm really here to share with you about. Because the next day, she had a guest speaker. And she shared her story. And her story was that her 6-year-old, I thought it was 6 years old, but it wasn't. So I got that part wrong. But her little nephew was diagnosed with cancer when he was a baby. And they believed and believed and believed for his healing. Well, when he was almost 3, he died too. And she was devastated. She was sad and disappointed and angry at God. One night she went out to her pool and she was just crying and yelling at God. And all of a sudden, she had this encounter. And it was like the pool disappeared and she found herself in like an intensely dark tunnel. And she could hear a train in the distance. And when the light from the train lit up the tunnel, she looked down and all around her, there were bones, like skeleton bones. And she was just about to be like, ah, And the Lord said to her, Kathy, many people have died in this place. He said, you have 2 choices right now. You can stay in your sadness and your disappointment, your anger and bitterness, and you can die in this place too. Or you can choose to stand up, look up, rise up, get on that train and choose life. And so, what would you do?
Choose life.
Choose life. You said it. Good answer. And she did. And her life just flourished after that. It was amazing, the doors that opened for her, and her ministry just exploded. And it was really great. Well, that story alone brought so much hope to me. I thought, well, I don't want to be in the dry bones, okay? I'm going to get on the train. I'm going to choose life too. And so that is what, that was her story. But that's not where it ended. I could have gone home there and been a lot better. But right after that, the leader of the widows announced to us that we were going to go out to the pool and they were going to baptize us. I'm thinking, she said, there's a method to my madness here. She goes, in Psalm 23, where it talks about the valley of the shadow of death? Well, when you and your husband were in that sickness together, you were literally walking through the valley of the shadow of death. I had never really thought of it quite that way. She said, but the good news is that a few chapters further, in chapter 27, it says, I would have lost heart had I not believed that I would see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. I don't know about the other widows, but for me, those words just came to life like they were living. And so out we go to the pool, and I wrote down some other things I was going to bury with the valley of the shadow of death. And it's my turn, and I go down into the water, and I come back up. And have any of you ever been baptized before and you saw the heavens open and the angels singing? Well, I didn't either, but it was, Sorry. But it was like that. Sorry. It really was like that because I felt 1,000 pounds come off my shoulders. I literally felt like a supernatural experience. And like my head opened up and joy just exuded out of it. And so I, again, could have gone home right then and there and just been ready to live my life in the land of the living. But the next day, she did another exercise with us, and she said, now, what are you going to do now that you've been baptized, you've buried that old nasty valley of the shadow of death, you've chosen to get on the train and be in the land of the living, right? She said, so what I want you to do is get out your journal, and I want you to write down 100 dreams. I'm thinking, I don't even sleep good at night, let alone have 100 dreams. And she said, and I'm not talking about dreams when you're sleeping. I'm talking about dreams for living. A glorified bucket list, if you will. She said anything from anywhere from learning how to bake an apple pie to a trip to Ireland to learning how to do a reel on TikTok. Okay, anything and everything, possible, impossible, it doesn't matter. So we wrote it all down. We came back together. And she said, now, I don't want you to take this 100 dreams home and put it on your shelf. What I want you to do is I want you to make this your handbook for living. I want you to activate these dreams. You can't think you're just going to have a lamp with a genie and you're going to rub it and all of a sudden you're going to be in Ireland. You got to plan it out, right? So the more that you can do to make these dreams come alive and come to pass, the better. So that's why I'm really here today. This is a love story, okay? It's one that starts out in the physical realm, but the truth is, it's a love story from the Lord to you. This story is for you. Because what I want you to do, you know what? Maybe you've never grieved a day in your life. Maybe you've never lost something. But grief comes in a lot of forms. You can be grieving over losing a job or a family member or a dream, right? Anything and everything. And even if you have no grief and never have, one day you will. That's just life and that's just truth. So I would encourage you, choose to get on the train and choose life, no matter what is going on in here, no matter what's going on out here. That is my prayer for you today, is that you will choose life and literally set your timer. Write down 100 dreams. And here's the deal. Dreaming will activate hope in your life. And hope leads us to abundant life. Thank you very much.